All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our second and final PolicyMap webinar of 2025 for California State Library. My name is Aaron Klein. I am PolicyMap's account manager, and today I'll be showing you how to download data from the tool. And I'll also be giving you a sneak peek of some brand new psychographic data from Claritas, which we are hoping to release sometime during the next couple of weeks. As I'm sure many of you already know, but statewide access to PolicyMap provided through the California State Library is unfortunately scheduled to end on July 31st due to the loss of federal funding. But the good news is that we've partnered with Khalifa to offer affordable access options for member libraries through July 31st of next year to help support libraries during this transition. Those options include access for just a set number of users, for all library staff, and also for both staff and patron access. We will be offering free staff access with the purchase of a patron portal. But if you want to learn more about the different subscription options available, and also to receive pricing information, please reach out to my colleague, Betsy Minnick. And you can actually find her email address on the California Library PolicyMap login page here. Now, before we get started here, I also want to let you know that I'm available for questions during the session. So just feel free to type any questions into the questions tab at any time, and I'll do my best to answer all of them. All right, so I think one of the great things about PolicyMap is that just about all of the data can be exported outside of the tool and into a CSV file. So if there's a certain data set that you find to be really valuable and you're concerned about losing access to that data set, I just want to walk you through the two different ways to download data from the tool. Now, if you're looking to download the data for your library district, I would probably recommend doing that through what's called the sidebar. So the first thing you're going to want to do is search for your library district. And you can do that using this search bar here on the left side of the screen. So I'll just search for Fresno County Library District. And once we select that, it's going to zoom in there. And then at the top of your library district, let me just search for that again. You'll see this option here to download data. And once you click on that, that's going to open up this sidebar here on the right side of the screen. And the sidebar makes it really easy to download any of the data sets that you're currently viewing on the map. So if I just add something simple here like library branches, which you can find under the quality of life tab here. Once we do that, it's going to add those branch locations to the map here. And if you look over in the sidebar, you'll see that it's going to populate that with the library data set. So if we download this data set here, what it's going to do is it's going to give me a list of every single library branch in the Fresno County Public Library District. So I'll click download data at the bottom here, and it's going to give me this notification that says it can take up to 15 minutes. Really, it should be much quicker than that. So typically the downloads will take probably like 30 seconds or so, unless you're downloading for a much larger area. But once that download's complete, if you've selected this download delivery method here, it's going to pop up over at the top right here in this Recent Downloads and Exports tab. Or if you select the email option, it's going to email that file over to you once it's complete. So here is my file. So here we have a list of every single library in the Fresno Library District. And the nice thing about the downloads for point data sets like this one is that it includes all the data that's associated with each point. So in this case, it gives us the library name in column A here, but it also includes things like the address for the library. And then if we scroll over to the right here, it gives us all this other data as well for each branch. Kristen, do you have a question? I see your hand is raised. So you can either unmute or you can type that into the chat. So this is an example of a point download. Kristen asked, does PolicyMap also include the longitude and latitude for points on the map? So unfortunately, the downloads do not include that. There is sort of a workaround to pull those using another feature called our data loader. So I can reach out to you after this session. I can sort of walk you through how that process will work. But that's a good question. And then another thing to mention with the point downloads is that in the legend here on the left side of the screen, you're able to filter a lot of these point data sets. So if you click onto filters, you can actually filter by different things like library type, for example. And all of these filters here also affect the download. So for example, if we were to filter this by, say, just the branch libraries, now if we look back in the sidebar here, it's going to show filtered, and it's only going to download the points that you filtered for. So if we did central library instead, it looks like there's only one library here. So my download would only include that one library location. Someone else asked about their PolicyMap access. If you filled out the form, someone should be reaching out to you to set up access, but I can also go ahead and do that for you. Or you can also just email Juliana, and she's happy to set up an account for you. Now, there's another type of data in the tool called layer data, which you can also download as well. So just as an example here, if we go back into quality of life, say we wanted to download the data on maybe something like computer access within my library district. I'll add, let's do household without computer access to the map here. And once we do that, you'll see that in the sidebar now, we have the option to download just the layer data, as well as points with layer data. So starting out with just this first layer option here, what this would give me is a list of every single, in this case, we're looking at zip codes. So it would give me a list of every zip code in the Fresno County Library District. And it would tell me the percentage of households with no computer for each of those zip codes. But we could also switch this to maybe a smaller geography like census tracts here. or even block groups. Now this points with layer data option is a little bit more unique because it basically stamps each of the points with the layer data. So in this case, say we wanted to understand whether or not the communities around each of the libraries maybe have access to computers at home or do not. We could do this points with layer download, which is going to give me a list of every single library in our library district. It would tell me the census tract that each library sits in, since that's the geography that we have selected here. And then finally, it would also tell me the percentage of households without any computer for each of those census tracts. So I'll download this as well, so I can show you what this looks like. And again, the sidebar here is directly tied to the data legends. So if you change something like, say, the year of the data in the legend or the variable, so if we switch this to the number of households instead of percentage. Now, if we look back in the sidebar here, it shows that we're downloading the number of households instead of percentage. So hopefully that download comes through in just a second here. All right, so this file is a little bit bigger. So if you look over in column J here, everything from J to the right is going to be the library data, which is the same thing that we downloaded before. But now if we look over to the left here, in columns D and E, it's going to give you the GUID for each census tract. So that's basically just the code that the census assigns for each geography. And then in column F here, you have the percentage of households with no computer for each of those census tracts. So what you could do is you can maybe sort this column to help you identify, which libraries sit within areas with a higher percentage of people with a computer or a lower percentage. So the sidebar is the first way to download data. We do also have a second method using what's called the download modal, which you can access at the top right here. And I would say that this is probably the most direct way to download data. So if you're just looking to come into the tool and pull data and you don't really care about interacting with it on a map, this is probably the best option for you. Now, because we already had data on the map, it's just going to auto-populate that under step 1 here. But typically, if you have a blank map, it's going to look like this. And you can add data by clicking on this add icon. So if we want to download layer data, I can just click add here, and then I can search for a data set by keywords. So say, for example, we want to download data on something like internet access. I can just search for those keywords and then select one of these data sets below. So let's do the percentage of households with no internet access. Now for the layer downloads, like I mentioned before, you can change the year of the download as well as the variable. Really quickly, I'm going to jump over to step 2 here, which is select the location. So it's going to be the same process. Once I click add, I'll get the search bar here. So say we want to download this data for something like Los Angeles. I can just search for that, select it. And you can also change the geographies as well. Now going back to step 1, you can also download point data in here. So again, things like libraries. And then you'll see the points with layer data option in here as well. Sarah asks, is there a way that you can download points with multiple layer data into one document? Good question. So right now, the downloads only work for one layer at a time. So what you would have to do is download separate files and then sort of join them into a single file. We do have a really exciting feature that we're currently working on with the multi-layer view, which is going to allow users to download multiple layers at once. So that's sort of in the works for later on in the year. But currently you can only download one layer at a time, unfortunately. And then really the last step here is to confirm the download. So you can give your file a name. You can change the data format here. And again, the delivery method as well. So that is how to download data in PolicyMap. If any of you ever run into any trouble with the downloads, we do have a really great help docs page up here. And this has tutorials on all the features. So you can just go into where it says data download here. And there are 4 really helpful tutorials. I would say if you're new to PolicyMap, probably check out this video gallery first here, just because this sort of breaks down each individual feature into like a 3 or 4 minute video. And we actually have one on the data downloads. All right, so let me know if there are any questions about the downloads that I can answer. All right, if not, then next I want to move on to giving you all a sneak preview of some brand new psychographic data from Claritas that we'll be adding into PolicyMap over the next few weeks. Perhaps some of you are already familiar with this data, but in case some of you aren't, we'll be adding the Claritas Prism Premier data, which is a widely used marketing segmentation system that was developed by the data marketing company Claritas. So this data classifies every single US household into one of 68 distinct consumer segments, which are based on a combination of different things like demographics, consumer behavior, and geographic data. So this data is mainly used by marketers, businesses, and entrepreneurs to understand their customers and gain insights into their purchasing behaviors. And in doing so, they can sort of locate potential customers and better tailor their marketing messages. So essentially, this data empowers businesses to use like a more data-driven approach to engage with their customers. So once this data is available in the tool. It's going to be found under this Curated Collections tab here. And there will not be any additional fee to access this data for libraries. So toward the top of this tab, you're able to view the data by predominant segment, which will show the predominant segment for each geography. So I'll zoom into Los Angeles here. Now, a lot of these segments have some very interesting names, which you can see in the legend here. But to understand what each of these segments are, we are going to include links to our data dictionary, which will sort of give a description of each segment. So those links should be in here. If you click on the eye icon in the legend. And I know there are also very detailed descriptions of each segment on the Claritas website. Claritas also groups each segment more broadly into one of 11 different life stage groups and one of 14 different social groups. And you can view the predominant life stage and social group for each geography as well. If you hover over where it says all segments here, it's going to open up a list of all 68 segments. And if you select one of these, it's going to tell you the percentage of households in each geography that fall within that segment. So say, for example, maybe we're opening up, I don't know, a new cafe, and we know that the segment that best fits our target market is this one here. We can select that segment and really easily visualize where there are areas with a higher percentage of households within this connected Bohemians segment versus a lower percentage. Kristen asks, is the PRISM data going to be available for all subscribing institutions? So yes, I believe this data set will be available for all libraries that subscribe to PolicyMap. And someone asked, can the segmentation data be broken down by address to create a mailing list? That is a good question. And this data set is still new to me, so I'm not 100% sure. There's no address level data, but you can always search for an address in the search bar here and see sort of like the predominant segment for the geography that that address sits in. So here we can see that these darker colored areas have a higher percentage of people that fall within this segment, whereas these lighter colored areas here have a lower percentage. And then further down in this tab, you're also able to do the same for each social group, each lifestyle stage, and also for urbanicity. So I wish I could give you a more detailed explanation of all this data, but like I said, it's still new to me. I'm still learning about it. But I'm sure we'll have more detailed information on our website soon, once it's released. Someone asked, is this only available for subscribers after July 31st? So I don't know exactly when this data is going to be released. I believe we're aiming for later this month. So it should be available before July 31st. That's what we're hoping for, at least. So we're really excited about the release of this data set. And I think it's going to be really valuable for certain library patrons who might be entrepreneurs or who are maybe in the marketing industry, or even libraries themselves, to sort of enhance community engagement and better understand patron demographics. All right, so I know I went through that pretty quickly, so please just let me know if there are any other questions that I can answer about anything that I've covered. But if not, that just about wraps up the session. I know I scheduled it for an hour, but yeah, let me know if there are any other questions. I do want to point out again that we have a great support page up here where it says Help Docs. And if you click on the contact button here, you can also reach out to us directly. But again, if you have any questions about setting up a subscription for your library to continue your PolicyMap access, please just remember to reach out to Betsy Minnick, who is happy to help. And just as a reminder, so this webinar is going to be posted on the California State Library website. Looks like Juliana put a link in the chat there. And that should be up within like a week or so. But yeah, special thanks to Juliana for setting up this webinar and all the previous ones. And thanks to everyone for joining. I appreciate it.